How better go there, how better go there, how better go where, how better go here, better go here, how better now, how better go.
Do-it-yourself quiet title. Welcome back. Today's episode is a discussion referring to, can I do a quiet title myself? Well, I'll start the episode by saying I'm not an attorney at law, I'm not a real estate broker, and I'm not a financial advisor. I'm an author, I'm an investor, and I'm a guide to help people like yourself learn about tax lien certificates and tax defaulted real estate. Today we're going to talk about do-it-yourself quiet title. Now, I don't recommend doing a lot of things yourself. I prefer to hire experts to help me out. So this information is probably going to be important to you, but you need to recognize, and I recognize, a lot of people like to do things on their own. I'm not one of those people. I prefer, especially if I'm going to get involved with the law, I want to use attorneys and I want to use title companies. That's what I'm going to react to, and that's what I'm going to recommend when I'm talking on these videos. I'm not one of those people that likes to be a do-it-yourselfer. All right, so I want to employ an expert, and I don't want to end up in court not knowing what I'm doing. So I'm going to try to hire the expert. So an experienced attorney is going to help you more than you're going to be able to help yourself when it comes to doing quiet title. I recommend that you're going to start out, think about how you understand the law. If you don't understand the law, well, then hire an experienced, now I use that word experience a lot, an experienced attorney who has done more than one quiet title to show you the way and how they do it. Now, that might cost you some time and effort to do that, but you'll not regret it because you don't want to start doing things that you don't know about. When you hire people, you want to make sure they're experienced people, not someone that's a looky-loo and it tells you they know about it. Someone that's done a quiet title is going to be very important to you. Now, why am I saying that? Because this is an adversarial proceeding that's going to take place. You're quieting in a title because someone, if you bought a property at tax auction, someone might have encroached. In other words, they might have put a fence or an easement or something onto the property that you now own. So you're going to be in an adversarial situation that can get pretty darn emotional. So I always say, hire an attorney to do that. But the question today is, can you do it yourself when it comes to quiet title? The answer is yes, you can do it yourself. But there's a lot of things you can do yourself that you probably should have somebody else doing. All right, so this is not going to be a walk in the park or something like that. It's going to be adversarial because if the property went through a tax defaulted auction, there could be other liens and encumbrances and judgments on the property. And what you're doing is you're hiring an attorney to remove all those, to clear the title, to clear up any defect in the title. So others often encroach on your property, but you won't know it by looking at it. So they'll probably have to do a survey, and they'll probably have to contact all of the past owners, which is what a quiet title is all about. So my experience is that most buyers, in other words, you bought at the auction, now you're going to want to sell it. Most buyers are going to want, and they're going to demand that they get title insurance. Well, I can tell you the title company is not going to insure the property quickly. They're going to say, no, we won't do it until you have a quiet title. Now, to get an attorney to do the quiet title, it's not going to take too long, but expect a couple of months that it could take for them to do all the necessary work. However, once they've done the quiet title, a judge must sign off. It has to be a court order to make a quiet title. So it's not something that's just going to happen in the automatic sense. Okay, so I recommend you have a little basic research, understand what's going on, but all you're trying to do is make sure that there's no defects in the title. Why do you want no defects? Because the new buyer is going to demand that. They're going to say, I won't buy. They won't buy the property, all right? Now, if you want to sell the property, use a contract of sale and carry an installment note while they pay for it, well, then you don't have to quiet the title because you own the property and you can wait as title will become clear just over a period of years. But if you want to sell it immediately, you're going to have to get a quiet title. So as I say, it could be an adversarial process. So do it yourself quiet title. The answer is yes, you can do it. My answer is no, forget about all that. You want to go and have a professional do that. All right, now there's over 3,000 counties across the United States. All of the counties can sell tax defaulted property. Now, when they sell that property, they sell it with a quit claim. All right, so they're going to give you a quit claim deed. So when you have a quit claim deed, that means the county's not taking any responsibility for the condition of the property, and they're not taking any responsibility for any defects in the title. So that means you're going to have to clear those things up. So the property owner defaulted. When they defaulted, the legislature said, all right, they get the tax collector and they get the treasurer, and they go out there and confiscate the property. They sell it at auction. Anybody can buy at the auction. However, is the title clear? So a quiet title process is going to come up again and again. All right, now I don't make all the rules, but all the enforcement is done by the Board of Supervisors and the county commissioners. All the rules, the statutes are made at the state level. So we're just going to follow the law, do it the correct way. But the beauty of this whole thing is that you're going to be able to buy property way under the tax assessed value. We're buying properties for 10 cents and 20 cents on the dollar. But we want to make sure with a quiet title that we're clearing all the judgments or any defects in the title off the property before we sell it. All right, so the auctioneer is already canceling the mortgage and the deed of trust loan. That doesn't mean that all the judgments or any other liens that could be on the property are cleared, but they have cleared the mortgage and the deed of trust. So understand that the property just doesn't come free and clear and you're going to be able to pass it on. The quiet title is going to take place. All right, the treasurer will take action to sell the property because the treasurer needs money to pay the county bills. All right, they're going to sell the property way under the tax assessed value. So what am I talking about? Well, the tax assessed value could be up here someplace at say $100,000. All right. However, the property could be sold for 10 or 20 cents on the dollar. Now imagine if you could buy a property for 10 or 20 cents on the dollar, you don't have to sell it for retail, sell it for 50 or 60 cents on the dollar, and you'd have a nice margin. You're in a business where you're buying margin, and you're buying properties that don't have a mortgage or a deed of trust loan because the treasurer will X those out. In other words, they will cancel and they will make sure there's no deed or trust loan on the property. So that's pretty good. All right, so what's the question we're answering right now? We're answering the question, can you do your own quiet title? The answer is yes. However, I recommend you, number one, hire an experienced attorney, not any attorney, one that's done quiet title. If they haven't done that, you don't want to hire them because you're going to have to pay them to learn how to do it. So the chain of title must be complete in order for you to sell the property. So that's what a quiet title is all about. Okay, ask yourself this question. If you could buy slightly used property for 10 or 20 cents on the dollar with no mortgage or deed of trust loan on it, could you resell that property? How would you go about doing that? You could put it on Craigslist. You could put it on multiple listing service. You could put it on eBay. You could use Trulia. You could use Zillow. You could put signs in the ground. You're getting the idea. You could sell that property. If you could sell it, if you bought it for 10 or 20 cents and you sold it for 50 or 60 cents on the dollar, how many deals like that would you like to do? Who would you sell it to? How about a fixer-upper guy and gal? How about one of those renovators that likes to make the house look like a mansion when it's finished? How about a property flipper? There's plenty of places to sell the property if you can buy it at the right price. Buy it low and then let's sell it low. We don't have to get retail for every property. So if that would work for you, this is a business you'll want to be in. All right, the money that you make on these sales, you get to keep the money. Is the county going to be happy? Yes, because the county got paid. And what about your family? They're going to be real happy about it. Why? Because you're going to be able to generate good money in over 3,000 tax defaulted auctions that take place every year. All right, now, does this take a bundle of money? Well, conventional thinking tells everybody you need a lot of money to buy and make a lot of money. Well, let me prove to you that you don't need a bundle of money and show you some example. For example, I have a former student. He likes to buy in Georgia. He's done over 100 deals in Georgia. He likes to buy at the tax defaulted auction.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get her going here. Start me off. Where to bid to go? Have it like $1,000. Open it up.
Because he can buy properties for 10, 20, 30 cents on the dollar. So I'm going to prove to you that you don't need a bundle of cash to do this. He purchased a property. It was 4 acres, a little over 4 acres, and it was a residential lot. So it's a large lot, and it was on a paved road, all right? Now, he bought that property for $6,000, but it was assessed for $23,000. All right, assessed for $23,000, bought it for $6,000. He resold it, not for the $23,000, but he resold it for $17,000. The difference between $17,000 and $6,000 was the profit on the property. Did that take a lot of money? No, it didn't take a lot of money. So once again, if you can buy properties for 10 or 20 cents on the dollar, and that has no mortgage and no deed of trust, how many of those would you want to buy? You'd want to buy as many as you could, right? All right, now this is just a teeny tiny example of the spectacular profits you could make with tax defaulted property. Now, I'll show you more of those in other episodes as we go along. Now, if you don't get this right and understand to buy low and sell low, you're going to be spinning your wheels and take a long time. You're only going to make a fraction of the money that you deserve. So understand, at the auction, buy it low, sell it low, and do it relatively fast. You see those little white circles? That's how many auctions are taking place within that state in the next 90 days. This calendar updates every single day. I'm here today to show you how to make money. To do that, I'm going to show you briefly that there are thousands of tax defaulted real estate properties across the 3,000 plus counties in the United States. This is quite interesting. You're looking at the Ted Thomas Magic Interactive Map and Auction Calendar. It changes every day. Now, I created the calendar and the map so I would know how many auctions are taking place every day in the United States. Now I can show the little guy how to make money. Most importantly, I created this system so I could have an auction list for each auction 24/7. All right, now in the small counties, small population counties, they're going to have dozens of these tax defaulted properties to sell. In the large population counties, there's going to be hundreds. I've actually been to auction where there's thousands in the large population counties. So this is a business you can do. Okay, I have two things to say before I leave, and they both have to apply to when you're buying property. When you buy a property, you must go look at it. You need boots on the ground. Why do you need boots on the ground? What if there was a hurricane? What if there was a flood? What if there was a windstorm? What if it was next to a pig farm or a chicken farm or something like that? You wouldn't be able to sell it. So you always want to check the property before you buy. Now, before you think about anything else at the auction, you need to know how much you're going to bid. You determine that by knowing your exit strategy. So when you're looking at the property, look around, figure out what your exit strategy is going to be. What number are you going to pick that you're going to sell this property? You need to know your selling price before you buy. I'm Ted Thomas. I'll see you on the next video. Don't forget, request your free auction list right below me.